Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Minecraft Peace podcast. Katerina here, and with me today I have Ryan Hartley. Hi, Ryan.
Yo, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
We said we're gonna have fun, didn't we, before we started
100%.
recording? So let's do that. And I'll kick off with, I guess I'll start with how we met. So Ryan is a coach who helps people grow into and develop as heart-centered leaders. So we'll get to that. And it was during those crazy years, 2020, 2021, I heard Ryan speak in our mutual friends group, Helen Pinkett, if Helen's watching. Hi, Helen. I didn't know who he was. I actually caught just the end of, I think, your talk, but there was something that just got my attention. And something you commented with afterwards in the chat. And I like to follow my nudges. I like to listen to kind of my intuition. And I was like, yeah, I need to find out who this person is. So we got connected. Then we had couple of in-person conversations, and I think a year later or something like that, I became a member of Ryan's mastermind group. He became my coach and was my coach for nearly 3 years, I think. Yes, and created an opportunity for me to have a tribe, I guess, a community, really supportive community for others like me who like to lead from the heart. So there's these two words that you use: leading, being a leader, and being a heart-centered leader. How would you describe that to people? What does it mean to you now, I guess, because it's evolved?
Thank you for that introduction. Well, my background's in policing. So I did 12, 13 years in the UK police service. And as I worked my way up that corporate ladder, as I got promoted, I was afforded the opportunity to go and train and do some leadership courses. And the first few modules, they're always about, what style of leadership do we follow? And then you sort of try and discover yourself as leader. And something happened. I became a father at the same time as I became a manager. And I think those two things were meant to happen at the same time because they gave me a
Mm,
completely different perspective on what I was told leadership was. If I looked around with my eyes, leadership would have told me that leadership is rank, it's hierarchy, it's
mm,
position, it's status, it's the closest parking space to the building. That's what I was seeing with my eyes,
mm,
right? Whereas this little baby I was now responsible for at home and getting up and sacrificing my time and energy to do the night feeds at 3 a.m. and help out the wife. I was doing that not I was doing that out of sense of love, deep love for wanting to nurture and
mm,
protect this little child and bring this child into the world and have them grow and develop the best way I could do possible for them. And I was having similar feelings about my people at work. It was quite
mm,
strange and quite alien, but I really started to care about the people I was managing and leading. I really cared about them as people, cared about them having spaces and places for belonging to come and do their best work. And something magical happened when I realized that I could send those people home better for the people who needed them
mm,
and received them. So I was a manager of, single mums that had several children at home and incredibly devoted and committed, but would be stressed and still there at like 5, 6 p.m. And there
mm,
was children at home waiting for tea. And I could just see an opportunity that my management and leadership could go, hey, go. I was given this perspective that my actions as a leader didn't just get the work done whilst we were there. It had an impact on the human being within the
mm,
role. It just sent me on a journey of understanding the core and the essence of leadership. And I truly believe that leadership, if I was to define it, is the act of putting our own needs to one side to be able to serve others. Now
mm,
we can go into that, and I've learned. I coined that. I made that definition up about 7 years ago, and I've got so much more connection and wisdom to what that really means in practice. But I think at the heart of it, leadership is about service. It's about
mm,
being able to be so devoted in the service of other people. And I think, I've got a little thing over my shoulder, a few concentric circles for those that are watching. And in the middle of it, it says heart. And then on the outside, it's mind. And then it's
mm.
skill set. And then it's community. And I think most people are coming to the world from leadership from the mindset perspective.
Mm.
Mindset was very popular with Carol Dweck, all of the mindset coaches that are out there, mindset, right? But I think we can do great things with our mindset. I think we can be really disciplined. I think we can achieve great things. But I think if we haven't engaged the heart, we'll end up in somewhere I call the penguins of Madagascar moment, which is where we've built a wonderful life. We've built the house, we've built the relationship, we've built the family, the cars, the job, the money, and we just look around and go, well, this sucks. You feel
Mm.
trapped by the life that we've created because we built it through mindset. And that mindset
Mm.
wasn't tethered to our heart set. It was tethered to the expectations of society and culture. So we've been a good boy, we've been a good girl, we've done the things we think we should do societally. And then we get to a point, hopefully sooner rather than later. I guess that's why it's called a midlife crisis, because we look around and we realize that our mindset has achieved wonderful things, but they were not aligned to something deeper. And I think
Mm.
that something deeper is our heart. And I was fortunate enough to interview a wonderful lady called Dr. Deborah Rosman. She's the CEO of the HeartMath business arm of the business. And she says, isn't it funny how we don't say I love you with all of my mind? Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's at the very core and the heart and the essence of leadership. If I'm going to be able to willingly serve and be prepared to sacrifice for the benefit of other people in my servant based heart leadership, then I need to come from a position that isn't rational and logical and algorithm based, that the algorithm says I'm 75% likely to get good outcomes if I do this style. No, it's about having a deeper sense of love. I think it is love that
Mm.
sets the tone. It was love that got me up and doing the 3 a.m. night feeds. It was love for the work that we got to do at the police, that I was willing to send people home better, take a bit of stick, I received a lot of flack from some senior leaders for the way that I would lead and protect the souls and the capacity of my team.
Mm.
And I think great leaders have a heart and a posture to do that. And I think we can only really demonstrate that style of leadership where we will serve one another, where we'll be willing to sacrifice if we have felt the power of heart-based leadership.
What an answer. There's so much to unpick. And obviously, I've been nodding along. A lot of these things make perfect sense to me now. But I guess I'll go back to a few points that I think are important for me anyway. One is you've already answered actually part of my question I was going to ask about service and the relationship with leadership. So we've
Mhm.
clarified that leadership is not about rank, and it's not really management either. It's a difference between a manager and a leader. And the parallel you draw with leading at home. So until we started working together, I wouldn't have applied this concept
Mhm.
to my home environment, to my family. So you've touched upon it with like sacrifice, being in of service to your family. Would you maybe share a little bit more around what does leadership look like in the home with
Well,
your families?
I think leadership in the home is the greatest contribution we can make to society. If our children interact with 80,000 people in a lifetime, as it's quoted, that is a lot of ripple effect. That is a lot of
Mm.
interactions. And for me, the leadership in the home, because nothing brings out our stress and hit all of our buttons and our triggers like the ones that we love dearest, right? I think there's a spiritual refinement when God sends the family we have and the ones we create. But kids can be our greatest teachers. But there's a Viktor Frankl quote, and he basically says between stimulus and response there is a choice, and in that choice lies your freedom, or something like that, right? Between stimulus and response, there lies a gap. And in that gap is your opportunity to choose. And in that choice, you will find freedom. So it's this idea that leadership is the bridge between a reaction and a conscious, intentional response.
Mm.
If we don't engage our heart set and our mindset when we are leading, we are just responding from what might be known as our chimp response. It's an emotive reaction. And quite often that's built up on years of trauma and triggers. And we will just display distress behaviors that we just assume that that's normal, that's part of our character, and that's just who we are. In reality, those symptoms are manifestations and expressions of us in a distressed state. So they are actually clues to lead us back to the path of wholeness, right? So that we can recognize within ourselves, oh, okay, I don't have all that I need in this single moment. And this is where I come back to my initial definition about being able to put my needs to one side. The context of that is because I have such an intimate awareness of my needs, I've been able to meet them first. I can come to the world in self fullness, not selfishness, but self fullness, knowing that I've given all myself all that I need. And is that the idea of, if you haven't, you can't give what you've not got. Well, just imagine how much you can give when you've got a lot. And I think that's the idea of leadership in the home. I think that's the context for us as parents, is to know ourselves so intimately, our stresses, our wounds, and our triggers, so that we meet, heal, and serve those needs first, freeing us up to what Alan Watts calls rise in love. I
I
think
love
our natural state in our pure essence is love. I think we fall from love when we forget that that's our true nature, when we are wrapped up in our shame and our guilt and our anger and our frustration. That's life, that's business, that's parenting. We get all those emotions, which is
yeah.
why we have to have moments in the day, rituals or practices will help us to rise in love, to come back to love, to become and embody love. That's a really life's work, because that's my greatest lesson I've learned through this journey that I've been on, is to learn how to lead from love, not for love. I've been talking about leading with love for a very long time, but if I'm honest, my very first 3 years of that was leading for love. Things weren't
Mm.
great at home, and made worse by the fact that my business was doing wonderful things in the community, and people were loving Ryan Hartley, and it was ticking all of my words of affirmation love language. It didn't send me home better for those who needed me. Everybody else outside my family got the best of me. My family got the rest of me. And, I was very fortunate enough to interview Dr. Gary Chapman, who wrote Five Love Languages. And on the very back page, the very last page, it just says, for all the love we don't receive as children, we become adults that seek that. And it was like a big slap on the face, as if to say, that's what you did. For all that kind of affirmation and validation and acceptance that I didn't believe that I had as a child growing up. Yeah, I used my business to seek that in the world. And it took me away from the very people that cared and loved and needed me most. So, parenting and being in a marriage and a relationship,
Mm.
it is probably one of the hardest spiritually refining things we'll ever do. But if we allow it to be our teacher, it will reveal great things about where we are to heal. Why? So that we can come to the world whole, from love, not for love.
Again, there's so much in that. Very relevant to me, because I was going to ask you whether those who choose to serve can do it just straight away, because my journey has been that actually I need to make sure that my needs are met first. So I need to become aware of what my needs are. I've had several conversations this week where I've asked the person, what do you need? And they had to pause and say, actually, I don't know. So first, maybe trace back even further is like, A, pause, B, create awareness, then meet the need, hopefully act on it. Because, there's again, at least it's been for me, okay, I have this great awareness of what I need. Am I doing something about meeting it
Mm,
or not? And then that would prepare me to be the person to then act as the parent, show
yeah.
up as the parent that I want to be, the parent, the wife, the friend. And again, that requires being in a certain, I think in this case, both mind and heart. I find that it's the mind that pushes me towards the action. The heart recognizes what it says that I
Mm.
need to do, but it's through working with the mind that I am then able to take action, and taking action's been quite hard. So I love
Mhm.
that you talked about that service and the relationship with ourselves is at the core of it. So when we talk about love, once again, for me, from my experience, it starts with me. I have to have a healthy, loving relationship with myself before I can be that with others. And that took a very long time. I'm still not there. For me, is definitely a life's work. But I guess you do get, so you need to get to a certain point in this building a healthy, loving relationship with yourself before you can be of service to others. Would you agree?
No, healthy, yes, but I don't think it has to be that way. I think Gandhi says lose yourself in the service of others. And I
Mm,
think some people quite literally lose themselves in the service of
right.
others. So they're
Yeah.
so their
Fine balance.
compulsion. Yeah, there's compulsion to serve others to the point where they can't rest. And if they're truly honest with the root, if we're looking at the spiritual root of why we do those things, quite often it's about the insecurity of who do people think I am if I don't do these things? Or how have I been so conditioned to receive love? And when we really, if we're acting compulsively, then there's an opportunity because there's an attachment there to something. There's an attachment either to the identity that I'm trying to maintain, the perception that I'm trying to maintain, the love or the whatever it is I'm trying to receive or maintain. There's an opportunity for us to unhook from that. It doesn't mean to say that the worldly behavior would need to change because the service is a wonderful thing. But are we coming with need and with an
Mm,
agenda? Am I bringing all of my stuff to the table? Because if I am, I'm not truly in service of you. And it's there. If I want to come in the purest, most powerful form of leadership, then it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to
mm,
do with the opportunity to serve you with what I have. And this is the final bit. Lose yourself in the service of others. The healthy way of doing that is when you understand that you are a creation of the divine. And I think
mm,
for me, loving myself means that I acknowledge my creator does not make mistakes. I acknowledge the value and worth in all souls and human beings, irrespective of my gifts and my flaws and my weaknesses. I think I'm able to look at all of it and go, well, wonderful design. And then you can find something that has been placed within you that is of value to another soul. And that's not a debatable topic that says, well, it's more or less valuable than somebody else. The minute I saw somebody on TikTok selling farts in a jar was the minute I realized that creation is subjective. The minute I realized nothing can be judged. Because if
yeah.
someone is willing to buy some creators fart in a jar, then we have to be able to bring our heart to the world in the service of others. We have to get away from this idea that creation can be judged. It's so subjective that it cannot be judged, but it will feel like healing for those in the world who need it. I have a Christian faith. In the book of Peter, it says the gifts and the skills and the talents you have, they are for those in the world who need it. I believe in a creator. I believe that we are all one and that we are
Mm,
part of the body. I believe there has been something placed in every single human being that is meant to be brought in the service of the whole, in the service of the body. The same way that if we were in community hundreds and hundreds of years ago, if not thousands, someone would have baked the bread, someone would have got the meat, someone would have made the clothes, someone would have done
mm.
the mindfulness stuff that Katerina does, someone would have yeah, we would have understood so innately our value because we would be contributing it in the service of the whole. At the moment, we've got everyone and everywhere having an opinion on social media, and we naturally then think that we are less qualified to share whatever it is we have. And the thing I love
Mm.
doing is helping people connect with that within them, their heart work. What is it that they really want to bring? What is it that they've got without judging it? And bring it to the world in the free, loving expression and service of other people. And I think when we do that, we can't help but leave people better because it's fueled
Mm.
with the very source that's expanding the universe, which is love.
You can tell Ryan has a lot of experience talking about subjects close to his heart. He's got an amazing podcast coming up to 300 episodes now, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, six years you've been running it. And actually, Ryan's podcast, his channel, was an inspiration for me. So one of the reasons why we're having a conversation on my podcast now is because I saw what Ryan does. I too love having, meaningful, deep conversations with people, diving into topics that hopefully enlighten, inspire others. And there's a lot of noise out there. We're being distracted by lots and lots of conversation, lots of images and so forth. I did wonder, shall I just add to the noise? But actually it's not, to me, it's not
100%.
noise. It's
Yes.
not noise. It's meaningful to me, and
Mm,
gives me joy and pleasure, and that as a start
mm,
is enough. And if it
yeah.
reaches people that, they take something away from it, then
Mm.
that's my job done.
It's highly likely that the majority of your audience will be women, right? There'll be naturally people that connect with you. My clients have historically predominantly been women. There's something about the heart-centered nature
Mm,
that it just is more engaged with freely from women, shall we say. But I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast earlier today, right? Manly Joe Rogan who gets in cages and beats people up. He literally said this one liner, which really resonates to what I've been saying a long time, is that we are simply here to show up, basically do our best, and find something that's within ourselves and find a way of just expressing that. And that's it. That's manly Joe Rogan going, there ain't no rules to this life. He says basically it's simple. Discover who you are, discover what you've got, do your best, and find a way of sharing that with the world. Expression, even though it might feel like a feminine quality, the minute that spirit of the love and passion for something, if we can find a way of expressing that and bringing it to the world, well, that's the gift in itself. You and I sit here as podcasters, an identity. That's not determined by the fact that however many listens and watches and views and guests we've got. It's based on the fact that we're the type of people that love asking curious questions of human beings. We love the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom, and we love nothing more than to share that with other people. So, of course, we podcast. There's a lot of people out there contributing to the noise because that is the latest mindset strategy to build a
mm,
business. This is heart-centered expression, not a business. Doesn't
yeah,
mean to say that it can't boost and fuel your business in a way that other people won't be able to fathom, but it's a heart-centered expression rather than a mind-driven strategy.
totally. And I I've not checked recently. I'd say the demographic is quite even for
Hello, Mel.
my channel. I think one of the reason is that my journey's been about actually moving from the mind into the heart.
Yeah.
It's been definitely about leaving the cage of the mind and the concepts that run my life, realization that's what's happening, and actually moving down into the heart space and opening it up. And I know, like you mentioned, we are born with certain kind of gifts and talents, but a lot of the, as you'll know from your great and most popular conversation of your podcast, Richard Rudd, is that, and actually a lot of those, our greatest gifts are kind of hidden to us. They first present themselves as what he calls shadows. And it may not be clear what your gift is. So even though Joe Rogan put it like it's simple, it may not be, because you were like, well, what are my gifts, right?
Yeah.
So this is a little clue for those who are curious, that if there is something, yeah, that's you've been working through, that's been difficult, that's been hard, and there lay possibly a little
Mm.
treasure in that. And for me, it has been that, but also just a general connection to self. So for me, that links really nicely with having that healthy relationship with self, means having a genuine connection to oneself. And by self, I mean that original pure form that we and it's one of the, if not the, Gabor Mate says it's the biggest trauma of everyone born, which is the initial disconnection from self. So being on a journey to coming back to that.
Well, you
Is
and I love the
yeah,
work of Neil Donald Walsh, right? And he talks
yeah.
about the 10 illusions of humans. One of those illusions is that we are separate, that there is an illusion of disunity. And one of the greatest mic drops from any of that work is that those illusions are there for our experience. They are there for our highest good, their highest service. So this has been, one of my greatest lessons. I very much resonate with the archetype of the orphan. I sit down and I'm interviewing Maureen Murdoch, who's talking about myths and archetypes, and in her latest book she's encouraging people to reflect on, the real inspiring archetypes and myths. And I sit there and I tell her about my archetype is like Simba. I thought, Arlie, come on, mate, you could have been a bit more highbrow than the Lion King. But it's that archetype of, he goes off into the wilderness. He feels like he's abandoning all of his like maturity and growing up, doesn't want to come back and take responsibility,
Mm,
and then is reminded who he is. Remember who you are.
mm,
And then he assumes his place as king, and that for me is how I resonate and reflect on a journey. But you wouldn't get that homecoming feeling, whether it's a prodigal homecoming, whether it's a king homecoming, whether it's a reconnection to self. We wouldn't know what that felt like if we hadn't had the experience of separation, of pain, of
mm,
hurt, of disconnection. So
mm.
this world brings in it a sense of polarity. Why? For us to experience is so
Yeah,
sadistic, right?
yeah,
But
totally.
but you're absolutely right. There is always something within the pain. There's always something within the
Mm,
hurt, the disconnection that sets something on fire within us. We just have to find out and figure out what that is. And because whatever's in you is not in me, and whatever's in me is not in somebody else. There's a really unique thing, and it's informed by the experiences that we've been through. In one of the scriptures, Paul pleads to God to remove the thorns from his flesh. It's a really famous scripture. In most translations, it says, it's okay, Paul, in your weakness, you're made strong. But in the Passion Translation, it says, in your weakness, you will find my fullest expression. You will find God's
mm,
fullest expression. So that's an encouragement to anyone that is embracing this understanding of what is my gift, what is my expression of divinity, as Richard Rudd would put it, as the city. The pathway to your divine expression is through your pain. It's figuring out what has been carved in your heart and your mind that makes you so empathetic and compassionate and drawn and driven to support and help others, because life is about service of other people. What's been carved on your heart that's got you so empathic and compelled to reach out and serve and love and protect others? And the pathway is always through our pain.
So talking of pain, probably the greatest pain we experience on the emotional level is happens in the heart. And my experience been that it's through those cracks, because most of us live or learn to live with this huge armor around
Mhm,
our
mhm.
heart. It's like in yeah, covered in shields and yeah, you name it. And it's only when those cracks start to appear in this armor that we can really connect with our heart
Mm.
and then go out into to the world from that space. I have a memory of, so what's helped me on my healing journey is a well, lots of modalities, but the one I kept coming back to is Reiki. And I have this memory, still remember it now, several years ago, when I literally felt physical pain
Mm.
as the armor began to break and my
Mm.
heart began to open. And
Mm.
I've got this image of like the heart being full of light, and then you've got these little cracks, and through those cracks there's this huge bright light like coming through, just trying to come out and burst through. And that required me to really move away from the mind. So to go out into the world in service needs to come, like you've described, requires us to come from the heart. But if your heart is shut down, is being protected, it's for good reasons, absolutely. You've been hurt. Everyone in this world has been in different ways. Some people remain more open-hearted, more, shut down a bit more. And but I found there's no other way than just working through that pain to open that feeling afterwards. It's nothing, I could never go back. Like, even though it felt safer, yeah, that was quite something. It continues to be. I know you had or what was your, maybe you could, if you're okay to share, what was your journey into the core of your heart?
Well,
Or maybe it was already open, I don't know. So I'm describing someone who was very much,
yeah.
shut off from that way of living, being. And yeah, it was
Yeah, well,
different for you.
you and I love the work of Dr. Gordon Neufeld and Hold On
Mhm.
to Your Kids. In the book, it talks about how at a very young age, kids learn how to, they're basically conditioned out of vulnerability. They learn that their vulnerability is not a safe thing to do and express. Therefore, that's quite a lot where, where you cut kids out of their emotions. They're not free to express that. It's not a safe thing for them to be able to do, which is common to what you're talking about, which is okay, fine. I'll not be feeling anytime soon. I will be in my mind, and there's a whole
Mm.
generation of people that have been conditioned out of their hearts because it was never safe for them to express, whether that be at home or with their friends. Bullies are very. The book talks about how bullying is simply when you demonstrate a level of vulnerability that person was told was not safe to express. So the vulnerability becomes the thing attacked. The very fact that you express and you represent the thing that they were told that they couldn't be. It's not a
Mm.
very personal thing. It's actually a very all about the other person, but it's always a bit harder to convey to children that message. But my journey. So my journey is young lad, grew up single parent family, and I just used to have this belief and this perspective that people don't stick around. People don't stick around for me. My mum and dad separated whilst I was 6 months old. My mum and stepdad separated when I was 12. My granddad moved to a different country, so I really kind of felt like I lacked a male presence as I grew up.
Mm.
And yeah, that just meant that I became a young man. I was very kind of curious and driven, and pursued psychology. I've always been a happy lad, like happy go lucky. But I don't think I ever reached the level of masculine maturity that I needed to. And that meant that when I've been with my wife since I was 15, she had to suffer me kind of man and boy. There were, certain behaviors that I demonstrated that were not in fullest service and honoring of her femininity, shall we say. I had to learn how to do those things because I guess one of the things that I had on my heart was there was certainly one chamber open up to kind of receiving. It was like good puppy, play up, make sure people are loving me.
Mm.
So that bit was always open, but it was from a position of need, and
Mm.
it meant that I was doing great things. It meant that I was influential, meant that I was serving. Life seemed very, very good, but it was never fully healthy because as I was sharing some of my work at the police, it came back to me that the senior leaders sat around with my social media profile. And the comment came back to me is, what the fuck does Ryan Hartley know about leadership? Why is he
Mm.
sharing all this stuff?
Mm.
And the immature heart in me at the age of nearly 30 took that incredibly personally and
Mm.
was very hurt by it. And that was what sent me on the journey of healing. The very thing that I wish had not happened sent me on this discovery of self,
Mm.
sent me on this, and it really the things that people were saying actually led me to get clearer on who I was and not seek that in the world and have other people affirm and validate me, but me come to terms with why did that hurt so much? Who am I? What have I got? Why did that hurt? And over time, I've been committed to these sorts of questions for a very long time now. And if you're brave enough to ask the questions, then you'll get the answers. So that's
Mm.
the start of my journey. Really, was to lean into the ouchness of the situation because if we're living properly, hearts will break. Either we'll crack them open intentionally because we're courageous enough to go on this journey, or life will throw a few things in that that challenges you, that jars you, that offers you the opportunity to demonstrate your true self. And I was a bit stubborn. I went kicking and screaming through that process, and I got hurt along the way. So much so that, short story is that my wife and I went through some struggles and some challenges. Again, because the world, in the way that the world works, told me that if I wasn't happy, then to go find it in the world. That my
Mm.
children would be better off if dad was happy, which is the worst advice I could have ever been given, because I did not fulfill the masculine prerogative, which was to make sure that my wife was honored and felt safe and protected
Mm.
and loved, and my children had the safety and provision. I wasn't being refined and challenged to become a man that did that. Instead, he was putting himself first and pursuing happiness in the world. Why ever cultures put that as our leading value, I don't know. But it made me make decisions that were self-centered. Luckily, we didn't separate, and she found faith along the way and encouraged me to go on a journey with her. Again, in the Hold On to Your Kids book, there's a concept called counter will, which is when someone needs you to do something, the other person doesn't really want to do that because I embraced a lot of counter will. It's safe to say I didn't want to read a Bible. It wasn't for me. I certainly didn't want to be Ned Flanders. Do you know what I mean? But I went to this festival, and I'm a people watcher. So I was looking around at like 30,000 people, just of all walks of life, all creeds, colors, worshipping and having this authentic expression. I'm a people watcher, and I'm like, something to this, something to this. And I came back and I started listening to the music a little bit more. Then we went to the local church, and it's like, oh, the pastor was my old teacher. I was like, okay, cool. It's like a point of interest. So I was curious. I was listening. And then on Father's Day 2019, the pastor said, we're going to just say some words over you men, do a bit of a commissioning just to, it's Father's Day. So I was like, oh, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't mean I believe anything. It doesn't mean anything. But I'll go and have some words nice said over me. And the pastor said, that's it, women. If you want to put your hands out towards these men, you do that. And it was like she Hadoukened. It was like she firebolted my spine. My entire body caught fire. My eyes just streamed. And I went back to my wife and I was like, I don't want to talk about this ever again. I said, but I feel like a child of God, and that's it. And that for me was when I really felt that I had some, what I talked about Richard Rudd with this kind of Christ consciousness moment, whether it's God, whether it's healing. Something happened to me that day that I meant I was forever changed. I felt like my heart had started a journey of healing. And
Mm.
since then, I've been, committed disciple to really try and walk the way of Jesus, trying to figure out how to be. I think the Bible is not a playbook to heaven; it's a playbook to heaven on earth. I think it is. My stubborn nature meant I did not want to be told what to do. There certainly didn't want to be told what to do by a man on a cloud. Not a chance. But the more that I dive into the wisdom that was shared by that man that walked this planet, the more it makes me a better human being. It makes me a better leader, it makes me a better husband, it makes me a better father, because it's 2,000-year-old timeless wisdom that's countercultural. And the more I've embraced it, the more I've healed, the more I've restored relationships with those that I needed to restore relationships. And I come to the world now from more of a place of wholeness than I've ever done. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have had an open heart, but also a curious mind, because the curious mind is what got me to a place of embracing the possibilities. I wasn't looking for logic and formula and answers, because something happened to me at a body level.
Mm.
Something happened. I had an experience that my mind couldn't make sense of. So my mind didn't need to make sense of it. It just had to go pursue more of it. And when
Mm.
you start to pursue the divine, tell you, the divine starts to have fun with you, starts to reveal loads of opportunities where it's always been present. So whilst I felt like Simba, whilst I felt abandoned, I never truly was. I went through that experience so that I may feel like what it feels like to be abandoned, to not belong, to not accept myself. Why? Because, man, I'm going to help an army full of people in this lifetime come back to a wholeheartedness so that they can love people and serve people who need love, belonging, acceptance. How do I do that? Through my pain, because I know what it's like to have been there, and I've got out the other side. I've been equipped with the character, the heart set, the mindset, and the skill set through that journey. Now I'm on the other side. I have become someone people are seeking not Ryan Hartley, but you've gone through it. You're an example. You are a demonstration of what is possible. Help me do that too. And the more and more I lean into that, the more and more people keep coming to me as a way of, again, not idolizing, because I won't allow people to do that, but looking for the way. And obviously, it's not Ryan Hartley's way because it's a 2,000-year-old way. I wrote this model down on my whiteboard only to go and read the Bible. It says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, or your mind, or your strength, and go love your neighbor. So that model over the shoulder is not my model anyway. It's a 2,000-year-old model. But I have become a spiritual warrior committed to being in service of other souls so that they may come to the world more in love and help others do the same. That is the heart print I hope to leave with Always Better Than Yesterday, is just more heart-based leadership. Because when we truly do that, when we come to the world from love, wholeness, sharing that gift that we have for the world, man, that's healing. Man, that brings more of an experience of heaven on earth. We ain't got to wait till the next lifetime. That's now. The playbook is for now. We can experience heaven on earth now, and it starts through the gateway of the heart.
Wow. I love that declaration. I like how fiery you got when you talked about it. I love you declaring you spiritual warrior officially as
Yeah.
well.
Well, so I've been doing some work with our good friend David Olcott, who was previously on your
Mm,
podcast, and he's been really challenging me, really like, see, he's a great guide and mentor for me because I haven't put myself in a position where I've been coached for a little while,
mm.
and he's really, because I've gone through such growth and expansion, and he's kind of met me at a point where it's like, all right, let's integrate. Let's integrate this heart and this mind and this soul and your body. Let's discover Ryan 3.0. Because Ryan 1.0 was the one that wasn't very conscious. Ryan 2.0 was the guy that figured some secrets out and it was really working well, but he hadn't really mastered it. Ryan 3.0 is when he's had some real stressful challenges and some attacks on some of his character and some of his life, and he's come through it by demonstrating who he truly is. Now it's about integrating all of that knowledge and wisdom so that he may be of even greater service to those who need him.
Yeah. And I know you do all of that beautiful work you've just described already with your focus on working with men, especially counsel. I'd say council of men. I don't like the word support group. That just weird. That's not right. That's not the right word. It's not. This is a very, very different kind of community of men. Of I imagine the true or future leaders. Yeah, leading their lives and others through the heart. And I know
Yeah.
that you've had lots of conversation on your podcast as well with
Mm,
men who already do that as well. And the one that got my attention most recently was the one with David Sutcliffe. And
mm,
um, what obviously you have a son and I've got two sons. I think there's a
mm-hmm.
reason why we have the children that we have. There's a reason why I'm the only woman in the household and I'm surrounded by men. And well, I'll just make a little comment before I ask you the question about leading men, is that it kind of, for me, it goes both ways. Men are needing support to mature into the men and leaders that we need them to be. At the same time, from my perspective, I had to, as a woman, grow into a person who then requires and I guess expects and demands that the man beside me has those qualities and
Yeah.
trust that they can have them, support them in them kind of working towards them and seeing them through the eyes of, yes, this is a man that can lead the family. So
Mm.
I think that I love your conversation with men about how they can grow themselves and heal themselves and all of that. But I wanted to bring the kind of the other side of the perspective into it as well. As a what are you finding with the men you work with or support? What is it that they need the most right now? Maybe in their life and also from us women, their partners, wives, and so on.
I'll start with what I've really learned and observed is that men learn what being a man is from other men. And one of the things I've obviously held space in group coaching for a very long time, predominantly women, and I don't think the model of therapy for men is fit for purpose for men.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't think men do face-to-face therapy. Yes, I think the world wants men to get in touch with their emotions, and they want to crack open the heart, but I don't think face-to-face therapy is the way of doing that, because men at their core are problem solvers. And if they start to embrace their emotions as problems, guess what? You ain't going to solve that problem. And if you can't solve that problem, guess what they conclude the problem truly is? It's them. And that's why many men are checking out, because there are problems that with which they cannot solve. Only by checking out do they truly solve that
Mhm.
problem. I heard a one-liner that I think this to be true, which is that men journey side by side, shoulder to shoulder. So I've created a space in Akira where men get to journey side by side. It's that whistle while you work mentality. And people will talk about their challenges, but they're looking for a more practical solution. Doesn't mean so that they don't embrace the frustration, the sadness, the hopelessness, whatever the emotion is. It does that isn't the source of what needs to be solved. They
Mm.
understand that the emotion will come and go. And so that's what I think a lot of men need is good wise counsel from other men where they can feel safe enough to have a conversation about where they're at and be given great wisdom from other men that are on a journey. The very first conversation I've had in my Akira group, my Good Fathers group that I run a couple of years ago, whenever someone shares something for the first time and they receive another brother going, "Hey, I've been through that," or "Oh, have you tried this?" They always say the same thing, which is, "I feel lighter." Men are carrying this burden. Men aren't talking, and it's because they don't need face to face. They just need a practical counsel to go. Anyone know how to fix this?
Way
And
forward, please.
100% it is.
Yeah.
And so I'll nuance it a little bit, and this kind of comes from a bit of my journey and a bit of what I observe. So I think there's a section of men that need to do this, which is crack open their heart. So some men have been conditioned out of their heart. They don't show any emotion. And I think a modern man needs to be able to crack open the heart because your wife needs to feel your presence. She's going to feel a bit more uncertain and insecure if she has no idea where you're at. The same problem's also true as if you're too erratic and too emotional. That's also going to create uncertainty and unease. There's a middle bit which is actually, do you know what? You're not hardened and you're not closed off. You're expressive. She can feel your presence so that she may rest and be safe. And also,
Mm.
if you've got children as well, it's like be fun, be playful, be able to interact with them. Like men need to crack open their hearts. Some
Mm.
men need to do that. Some other men, I reckon, there's be a whole lot more men that are raised by a generation of single parents, myself, women that have to learn how life is not organized for their comfort, how life should not be built around a man's pleasure and comfort. Because if a man is too busy filling himself with pleasure and comfort, that is a selfish man. That is a man that can't put anybody else to, in front of his own needs. And he will make decisions from a place of self rather than
Mm.
sacrifice. I think this generation, in absence of men, fatherlessness, go and read The Boy Crisis by Dr. Warren Farrell. It's a
Mm.
masterpiece about what happens in a world of fatherlessness, particularly for young
Mm.
boys. So the other demographic of boys need to learn how to do what's difficult. They need to learn how to sacrifice, how to test the mind, how to test the body, how to build
Mm.
resilience.
Mm.
So both there's two disciplines, and ideally we'd work on both. We'd have we'd have a jungle gym for the heart and a jungle gym for the mind and the body, and we become integrated men that have got hearts open, they've got clear minds, and they've got strong bodies, and all together creating a spirit of a man who honors and loves and serves and protects with whatever he has. And that's not to say that everybody needs to be, really super strong or whatever. It's just a simple thing. Nothing makes me more annoyed than seeing a man walk on the inside of a pavement whilst his wife and children are on the outside. It's like, no, that's your physical prerogative to be where the danger is. Let's put yourself where you should be, which is in protection of those people that you love
Mm.
and you serve. And that might be petty to some people who don't get it, but I think it's a deep rooted kind of truth, which is, we, if we want to be biblical about it, the world, it's not about, hey, you've got dominion, you're not in control, you're not the head of the house as a controller. There's a huge amount of responsibility that comes with dominion, which is that you were given the earth, you were given the birds and the bees and the flowers and the fish, what? To look after it. Man was given dominion, which means love and look after, not dominate.
Exploit. Yeah.
Right. So a man connected to his heart and balanced in his mind, got clear perspective on who he is and the value he brings to the world and his strategies and his problem solving, and he's physically mobile and capable, he's full of life and vitality. Well, that man's gonna look after his whatever he's been given dominion over. In a way, he's gonna love it, he's gonna nurture it. And if you're a father of boys, then you get the opportunity to challenge that in your boys too. If my boy's giving his mum some cheek, guess what? He's getting my perspective on that. Get in there,
Mm.
apologize, go make it right. Guess what I didn't get as a young man? I was a cheeky chappy. I was not refined. And so unfortunately, my son is getting like, not only is my son getting fathering in the way that I didn't, he's getting a double down of it because I'm like, yeah,
It's
I need to
okay.
be,
Balances out with your wife's approach. So that's,
I,
yeah.
right, there you go. Perfect. You've exactly hit the nail on the head, which is not either or is right. It's
Yeah,
and. It's
exactly.
I bring this, that's valuable. You bring that, that's incredibly valuable. And in service of the whole, that polarity, man, it just me and my wife now we are finally at a point after being together since 2002, so we're talking like 20 plus years, where we truly are sinking into who we are, what we naturally bring, in a
Mm.
way that isn't competitive or looking at fault for each other. Yeah, things are on fire right now, and it's taking a long journey to get there. And it comes from this wisdom of knowing our roles, knowing what we have, and then
Mm.
contributing that in the service of the whole and the we and our family.
Getting to a point of that clarity of the roles, bringing the different aspects of it is a kind of just perfect setup, perfect creation, the complementation of, yeah, the two roles complementing each other. Because I started up with, frowning and not being happy that my husband isn't kind of empathic enough of,
Hey, guess what,
the
Katerina?
boys.
Guess who's the one with the gift? Guess who's got the gift of that one in the household?
Well, I think there's that would be maybe for another conversation. There is it slightly depends on the age of the child, I think. But I when I saw what and recognized what the role of the man, the father in the family should be, that was such a relief because it was like there's nothing going wrong here. There needs to be a level of the leadership, basically. There needs to be that. I mean, it is difficult for us, single parents because they have to kind of be both. But if you are the two, um, it's brilliant
Well,
to. It's an
I
invitation to like heal
100%.
your your feminine and your masculine, and
Yeah.
then the two working together is fantastic.
I was raised in a single parent family. Like I have
Mm,
nothing but love for single parents, and I
yeah,
like please don't mistake any of what I'm saying, but it ain't meant to be that way.
no,
And,
no.
if you are exhausted, if you are tired, if you are struggling, first off, recognize what a incredible contribution that you are making. What an act of love and service, right? In a way that you probably haven't chosen that path. And the no shit Sherlock is that it's hard because you're never supposed to be doing it on your own. Parenting is hard when there's two of you, let alone one of you. And the
Yeah,
fact
not
that
even that wasn't meant to be like that. We are meant to be actually within a community. So had we actually lived in proper communities, even the single parents probably would have been better off and better
yeah,
supported.
well, so that's the Dr. Gordon Neufeld bit, right? The greatest thing I took from his conversation, that the purpose of family is cascading care, that the
Mm,
grandparents relieve the burden of the marriage on the parents, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, wow, what a wonderful thing we're given in
mm.
terms of this family. And this is why I've got a real bone to pick with culture, right? Culture is the thing that has destroyed the family unit. It's taken people away either out into the workplace or out into other areas of, you know, breaking down without sounding like an old generation of the nuclear family, I think that is the very much the context for thriving. And the more and more my wife and I journey, the more and more we want to unplug from the world. The more and more we would want to listen to
Mm,
the opinions and the indoctrinations of the world and of schools
mm,
and of
mm,
culture. The more and more we want to double down on our family and our values and what's important to us and who we're becoming and the rituals and the routines that we demonstrate that serve to show the world who we are. You
mm.
know, and the fun and the joy and the memories and the dog walks, and we're not going to be fooled into earning more money or working more or trying to get more status, or maybe she's looking a bit older now so she might want to change her physical. We're not going to drawn into any of those things. Certainly not going to let my daughter listen to Taylor Swift, but maybe that's a whole other conversation.
Well, the way I see it is that it's wonderful to come to kind of the point where you maybe can talk about identity, you're very
Mm,
clear on your values and all that. But rather than unplugging, it's creating you. Yeah. So
100%. Yeah.
start afresh. Bring it, build it up from the grassroots. I think there's a lot of it happening. It's probably invisible or difficult to see for people, but it is happening. And let's um let's do that really. Build
Well,
new.
but
Yeah.
so much of this coaching work is that you're not working with something that isn't there. You're
Mm,
working to put words to something that already is there. Who are we? What do we do? What's important to us? What do we value? What do we care about? What annoys us? Because there's probably some clues there into the things that annoy us. So, for example, we're just Team Hartley. We're Team Hartley. We're kind. We help people. And we share our gift with the world. That's just our little mantra. And I truly believe that. I'm not trying to make it into a corporate business plan, but having some form of identity. Another point of having an identity is having some rituals that serve to demonstrate that. So every Friday morning was Pancake Day. We'd have pancake. That's just something that cues a signal to say this is what we do in this tribe.
mm,
It's very
mm,
simple, and that's where dads can take the lead. Mums can do the same too. Mums are great at this. There'd be particular things that she might do in the morning, whether that's waking the kids up for school, whether it's particular food, whether it's
mm.
particular sayings. They're all rituals. When you look to observe, what I do regularly in consistency.
Yeah.
If I was an alien coming in to observe this house, how would I describe this family? How do they operate? What do they care about? How do they demonstrate that to each other?
Mm,
And if you don't have clarity on what those things are, the invitation is to go and start to define them, start to go and create that. That's the
mm,
freedom you're given in this lifetime, is to create who you are and create who we are. That there's this idea of 1 + 1 = 3, is this idea that when you create a family, it's a whole new entity that you're giving the world. And to be able to codify it, to be able to say who we are, to be able to say what we care about, to be able to say what's important, you basically are creating your own, map of peace and harmony and love and joy and connection, because it's written down. We'll feel peace, love, joy, connection when we're in doing these things. And if we don't feel those things, it's probably because we're not doing those things.
mm. And to parents or listeners who are a bit like me, who start looking at all the things that they're not yet doing, do all of this with compassion for
Oh,
yourself and
joy.
looking at what you're already doing, and don't be too hard on yourself
Well,
as you
this
build this. Yeah.
100% great point. This comes back to wholeness and what we said at the very start, right? Coming to the world from love, not for love. Because when you come to the world, from lack and for love, everything's
Mhm.
inadequate. Everything else is not good enough until you've done it. And guess what? When you've done it, you ain't going to feel like that anyway. So don't let it fool
There's
you.
something else. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
this. It's the.
Yeah.
It's the tale as old as time. The serpent in the garden says, "Have this, and you'll get the." It's commercialism. Is the very idea that everything we need is outside of us. It keeps us a
Mm.
consumer. It keeps us in lack, and it keeps us a victim. Do not be deceived, my friends. Do the countercultural thing, which is to come to the world whole in your present state in this moment. Do a few of Katerina's meditations, whatever it takes, so that you walk into life knowing that Psalm 23 is true, that you have all that you need, you lack nothing. And in coming to that, every act you choose to do is a gift. That's the opportunity for
Mm.
us to pick up, is the gift of creation, the gift of doing something as an expression of who we truly are and how we want to demonstrate that love, rather than feeling inadequate until we've done it. Because guess what? You'll still feel inadequate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't be
Speaking from
deceived.
experience, yes, absolutely.
100%.
Orion, I think we should be looking at wrapping up. We've had a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I want to be respectful of your time, the listeners and the viewers' time as well. You've already shared with us what your heart print is, so we've got that covered. But we've talked about building you. Let's look towards the future then. So looking at our young men, our sons, the future generation of men, any words for them from you now?
There is something in you that the world needs. There is something in the world needs, and you need to have the courage to be able to discover what that is. Go on a
Mm.
journey, discover who you truly are, what you really care about, what you're really passionate about, and make a commitment to start bringing that to the world in the service of other people. And, wonderful things will happen in your life when you see the impact that you have just by being who you were born to be.
Mm.
Get around good men, journey with good men, unattach yourself from the world that says you need to pursue and desire all these things that are really bad for you. Stop looking at things that are very bad for your soul. Stop engaging in mindless activities that just are there to boost your pleasure. Learn how to embrace difficulty, challenges as a way of growing, and walk headfirst into challenges, knowing the gift will be that you become someone who's capable of overcoming great challenges. And yeah, never doubt for 1 second that you are not needed. You are needed more than you ever imagined. The world needs your masculinity. The world needs your presence and your protection and your provision. And the world needs your love and your heart and your joy. And it would be a very sad and sorry place without that brought in its fullest, most
Mm.
vibrant, only able to be brought by you. I really believe that, yes, the humility of being 1 in 8 billion people, but there ain't one like you. And the puzzle remains incomplete unless you place yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you for your time, for your wisdom, your words, and yeah, thank you for being my guest. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, everyone. And yeah, have a great day. See you soon. Bye for now.